Next up on the trade rumor mill is a conversation about one of the hottest young Austrians to lace up the skates and step out onto NHL ice. Over the past few weeks, we have made a bunch of videos about this particular Minnesota Wild player, Marco Rossi, because his situation with the Wild has been quite daunting, to say the least. As a former top 10 pick in the 2020 NHL Draft, a player who almost died due to complications with COVID-19 back when the virus was brand new, and who had to go through a miraculous recovery period to get back to top prospect form. Marco Rossi is a 23-year-old who needs a new contract as an RFA. He is kinda small, 5'9", 192. Left-handed center, but he is a guy who posted up 60 points in 82 games played this most recent season with Minnesota. He had 3 points in 6 playoff games, which sounds great until you realize that for a guy who was at 60 points in 80 games in the regular season, he only played 11 minutes and 10 minutes in the series against Vegas. This guy was really underutilized, going from some 20-minute games in the regular season to being further and further down the lineup. He has not really been all too utilized, and you can say that there's more value to him and his game than what the Minnesota Wild are presenting. And with all this in mind, it puts Rossi in a pretty good spot to potentially get moved by Minnesota. They don't necessarily seem to be interested in developing him and allowing his skills to grow. They think maybe he's too small, he's too this, he's too that. But what he is absolutely skilled, and a guy who can help a whole bunch of NHL teams as a potential second-line center. Maybe if you even wanted to push it, you could try him at number 1C. Who really knows? I mean, Pia Suter was a number 1C in the NHL this year. Marco Rossi probably has a little bit more in the tank to show for in that respect. But now, what I wanted to do was head over to an article posted on donlescoulisses.com that goes over a whole bunch of other stuff in the National Hockey League. This piece was posted yesterday by Maxime Truman. It goes over how Sam Bennett is hesitating between signing in Florida and Toronto. Okay, that's an interesting angle to open up the article with. But in general, this is a rumor article, so we're going to leave a link in the description if you want to see the scoop about Bennett there. But also, the Marco Rossi thing is included here too. Let's dive into what it is that RG.org went out there and posted about on Rossi in a tweet that's included in this Don Les Coulisses article. Per Jimmy Murphy of RG.org, Marco Rossi is very much on the trade block for the Minnesota Wild, with chatter expected to pick up next week. The Flyers, the Sabres, the Penguins, and the Blackhawks are among the teams to have already shown interest, with the field expected to expand. Those are some pretty big money names there that Marco Rossi is garnering attention and interest from, all teams that could use some younger guys and potentially some center help too. I'm just thinking about what Marco Rossi could look like alongside of a Matvei Mishkov, or play him on the power play feeding it up to Connor Bedard, or seeing what he could do with a Tage Thompson. There are a lot of options for Marco Rossi, one of the smartest players in the 2020 draft, a guy who torched the CHL and who took that offensive creativity and pizzazz into the National Hockey League. But Marco D'Amico's tweet here has a very interesting response from the writers on the Don Les Coulisses article. Yeah, it says that the Flyers, the Sabres, the Pens, and the Blackhawks are interested in Rossi, but the absence of the Montreal Canadiens is not surprising, Maxime Truman writes. Martin St. Louis already has enough small players to coach. We saw in the playoffs that you can have 1, 2, or at most 3 smaller guys, but not 17. Rossi, eligible for an offer sheet, is not expected to return to Minnesota, according to an executive who spoke on condition of anonymity to the media outlet RG.org. Now, this is interesting. Firstly, okay, yeah, great. We could talk about Chicago, Philadelphia, Buffalo, etc., but the idea of Montreal not necessarily showing interest in Rossi so far, while it isn't something that I would say is absolutely fantastic, because I personally do like Marco Rossi a lot as a hockey player, I can understand the vision here. Montreal already has Cole Caulfield and Lane Hutson, two guys that are primarily noted for not being the biggest but who can still be very impactful. We have seen this Habs team put an emphasis on guys who can be bigger. From the Kirby Dach acquisition to the first overall draft pick of Juraj Slafkovsky to some of the other guys on the back end in Mailloux and Cayden Goulet, and of course, other guys in the bottom of the lineup like Yoel Armia and others. Marco Rossi would fit more of the former category, being yet another sub 5'11", 5'10 guy trying to make an impact on the Habs. And while that isn't necessarily bad, you could understand that the Canadiens went for a guy like Kirby Dach in the first place partly because he does have that size to his name. Marco Rossi simply does not have that, and it has been noted by different NHL analysts and writers that Rossi's size is going to be, whether you like it or not, an obstacle here in some conversations. Like for Montreal, okay, it seems like maybe the Habs wouldn't really necessarily want a small guy. In Vancouver, that's already been a recommendation by some folks analyzing that team. Hey, the Canucks shouldn't get Rossi because he's too small. This also played into why Rossi was drafted 9th overall back in 2020, despite the fact that he outscored Alexis Lafreniere in the CHL. The guy was a menace in junior hockey, who just so happened to be 5'8", 5'9". And he hasn't really grown since then, so we can't really go out there and congratulate him in that respect. But now, Marco Rossi, on the trade block, there is a potential for him to get sent over to a team that can evaluate and utilize smaller players to an effective capacity. Just thinking about Connor Bedard and Marco Rossi together, okay, I can understand the vision there. I like that a lot. Heck, even Marco Rossi with Ivan Demidov. If it were up to me, I would say the Montreal Canadiens would be better off going after a guy like Rossi and trying to get this guy onto their team. But if they decide not to, if they think the size is an issue, I can't understand it. You have enough guys that are already small. I would be okay with another one, but that, of course, is not my decision. I'm not Kent Hughes, after all. So ultimately, I want you to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. How do you feel about Marco Rossi as a potential Montreal Canadiens acquisition? We have made this video a few times regarding Rossi and a whole bunch of other teams, but now, hearing that the Flyers, the Sabres, the Pens, and the Blackhawks are the first teams showing interest, and how Montreal is not one of those teams, how Montreal maybe is in a spot where they wouldn't want to go after a guy who is this size, that remains to be seen. But of course, what are your thoughts on this idea as a whole? Do you think it makes sense? Do you think the Canadiens will not show any interest in Rossi? Or, if you had to wager bets, do you think Rossi suits up for the blue, white, and red at some point this season? Is that possible? Or does he go somewhere else? If you're a fan of the Blackhawks, the Pens, the Flyers, or the Sabres, you can let me know your thoughts in the comment section as well. How do you feel about Rossi potentially being an option for your team? Habs fans, what are your thoughts on Rossi not being the guy for Kent Hughes? Let me know in the comment section all your opinions. I hope you enjoyed this video. And bye.